Audible in terms of audiobooks, and they decided that I guess they would venture into print publishing. So they don't have a huge backlist of print titles. This is it's nice to kind of get in on the ground floor, and they're doing some science fiction also. So The Big Get Even, I had that title in my notebook for ages and ages and ages before I thought of a plot and characters and story to go with it. And so after I was well into the novel, I said, you know, there's something about that title. I did not create that title. I said, I heard that, I wrote it, and I should illustrate what I'm talking about here. I always carry around a good old-fashioned pocket notebook, and when ideas strike me, I jot them down. So I said, I wrote that down. I heard that somewhere. Where the hell did I hear it? And so, of course, nowadays we can track everything down. Guess where the Big Get Even comes from? A Stevie Nicks song. So it's a highly unlikely source for a crime novel. I don't associate Stevie Nicks with noir fiction that much, but I think it works. You know, so I hope if she ever sees this novel, she doesn't totally hate it or think I ruined her phraseology. So what I'm going to do is this, I'll read the prologue, so you probably don't need to know any more about it, because if you were, you know, a reader just coming to the book, this is all you would know, the very first pages. But it's a kind of a caper novel. It's not a mystery per se, because you always there's no secret or no identities are hidden. You know, everything is known. And in fact, the novel is narrated by one of the bad guys, and I call him a bad guy, but it's him and his partner are kind of amiable. They just want something for nothing, as so many of us occasionally feel, and you know, they want a shortcut to riches, and they both transgressed against society in certain nonviolent or you know, not particularly hateful ways. So they're a couple of lovable losers. Hopefully, that's what I was aiming for. So the narrator begins the story that he's going to tell us this way. These days, I obey all the laws, even the stupid ones. With 3 years of parole still hanging around my neck, I can't afford to put a foot wrong. Too many vindictive people, mostly those I had stolen large sums of money from and who were never recompensed and were never going to get recompense, would be delighted to see my ass back in jail. This newly civic-minded attitude of mine explained why I was sitting at a traffic light, idling behind another car at 3:20 a.m. on a frigid December night, while the exhaust-belching beater ahead of me hadn't moved for 3 full cycles of green, yellow, red. Even though no other car had passed through the intersection in any direction for several minutes, I didn't want to just zoom around this blockhead, just in case a police cruiser should happen to swing by at that very moment. I had just enjoyed 3 generous mojitos over as many hours at Danny's Cavern. So, while by my reckoning I was still sober as an owl, I didn't want a chance blowing even a hair over the legal limit. But my patience was wearing thin. Not that I had anyone waiting for me at home or any job to get up for in the morning. Nonetheless, I still focused my growing annoyance on the back of the driver's shaggy head, spotlighted in the muted blue radiance of the corner streetlight. I tried to send a telepathic message to move. No luck. Was he busy looking at his cell phone? I applauded his considerate wisdom in not texting while his car was in motion, but my inconvenience had to count for something. Finally, I did what I had been avoiding for fear of waking up this whole very proper suburban neighborhood where we sat frozen in place. I lay on my horn for an ear-splitting second or two. I might as well have whispered at him for all the response I got. With a long, self-pitying sigh that felt all too familiarly satisfying, I put my car in park, and, leaving the motor running, I stepped out. The cold air hit me like falling into a mountain stream. With the clean scent of approaching winter stinging my nostrils, I crunched over the gritty ice on the roadway to the guy's door. My first impression was he was your standard mook. Ugly handsome, wearing a leather jacket unzipped over a garish sweater, which was cut low enough to reveal a thatch of chest hair adorned with a gold chain. I had seen his type often enough coming through the law offices, usually seeking our help against one minor felony charge or another. But my second quick impression told me the guy was dead. His face was pale and clammy like a frog's belly. His lips were bluish, and not just from the streetlight. His eyes stared without seeing. His pupils were the size of poppy seeds. His stiff right leg, foot jammed on the brake, was the only thing keeping his car from moving. I jerked open the door and brought my head close to his, got a whiff of booze and body spray. Faint but stertorous breathing told me he hadn't quite croaked, and then I knew what had hit him. I'd seen it often enough before. I sprinted back to my car and I grabbed the Narcan kit from under the front seat. I fumbled out the nasal injector and I sprinted back to the mook's car. I had to wrangle him to tilt his head back and maximize the dose. Then the car started to roll forward and I abandoned him for the shifter. After slamming it into park, I pushed the injector deep into one nostril and I blasted the naloxone up into his skull, and then I laid him back down in the seat. Almost immediately, his condition improved. His breathing got easier, his skin changed color, and he began to twitch. If only this miracle stuff had been around when I was using, but it wasn't, and I had seen several of my dope friends buy the farm for lack of it. Then I called the cops on my cell. They wore it up in no time, as if they were actors waiting just off stage for their cue. Their strobe lights painted the scene as if for an early Christmas. One cop went to attend the mook while the other came to me. The blonde, smooth-faced kid questioning me looked so young and earnest, I felt like my own father. But he still regarded me with that innate suspicion all cops quickly develop, as if I must be guilty of something. Your name? Glenn McClinton. I already had my license out. You called this in? Yes, and I explained the circumstances. Please wait right here. He went back to the car and ran my information. When he returned, he was trying his best not to look especially crafty, and I resigned myself to some further hassle. Mr. McClinton, the terms of your parole do not include a prohibition on alcohol, so I won't ask you to take a breathalyzer test. You seem quite sober. I hope you'll appreciate this special consideration. Thanks. I suspected what was next. Okay then, so maybe then you'll be up front with me. I need to know, were you meeting this person to make a heroin buy? I was not. I've been clean for over 2 years. And yet you carry a Narcan kit with you. Well, you know, I just don't like seeing people die if I can help it. Isn't it quite a coincidence that an